भारत माता की।
So
तो
with
इसी
this
जोश
same
के साथ बुलाते हैं अपने नेक्स्ट पेपर प्रेजेंटर को, मिस्टर आर्या खेड़कर, टू प्रेजेंट अ पेपर ऑन हाउ क्रेडिट रेटिंग्स आर असाइंड टू कंट्रीज.
Kasakai Vasai! Give me a cheer, come on! Very good afternoon to everyone present in this auditorium today. My name is Arya and I have come all the way from Nagpur to present my paper on the topic of how credit ratings are assigned to countries. Well, let me ask you all a small question. हम में से कितनों के साथ ऐसा हुआ है कि यार दोस्त पैसे ले गया पर कभी वापस ही नहीं किए? हुआ है, सच बोल दो भाई, सबके साथ होता ही होता है. So let me start with a small story which happened with me a few months ago. So me and my friend decided to get jerseys, right? We have like football teams and so we decided to get jerseys. By the time we went to the store, he says to me, कि यार आर्या, आज के दिन ना पैसे तू दे दे, कल पक्का मैं दे दूंगा. आज तक वो पैसे मुझे मिले नहीं है यार. A few days ago, another friend of mine comes to me and he says, कि hey, your other friend was asking me for some money. Do I give him? And I said, absolutely not. He is not trustworthy and might not give you back your money. Well, what you understood through this story was basically the concept of credit rating, where I have acted as a credit rating agency and given my friend who defaulted a rating that this dude does not pay back his money to my friend who is the general public. Well, now you might ask that what are sovereign credit ratings? Now you know what a credit rating is. It is basically like an assessment of whether a particular entity will pay back its financial obligations. The same thing goes to sovereign credit ratings. That is, countries are given credit ratings. Well, for a country, this is just not a number. It is much more than that. It is like a mirror which reflects its economic strength and governmental integrity. Well, a major question rises. Who really gives off these credit ratings? Well, there are three major entities that give off this credit rating. So there are three agencies that give off this credit rating. That is Fitch Ratings, Moody's, and lastly the S&P Global. They take up to 95% of the entire market. And now another question rises along with that. Who really authorized these agencies to give off credit ratings to literal countries? Well, the answer for this is very easy. These agencies have been working for over a century in this market. As you can see, the S&P was founded in 1860, which is almost 1.5 centuries, and hence they have hands-on experience on how credit ratings are to be given to various countries. Well, this is what a credit rating really looks like to countries. They range everywhere from A to D, where A is basically investment grade, amazing country. B is like a stable outlook. C and D are basically junk ratings where you ideally do not wish to invest. Well, how are these credit ratings reached upon? What is the process of credit rating? It's four basic steps. Number one, data collection. Number two, stakeholder engagement. Number three, an analytical review. And lastly, the publication. Let's look at each of these steps in detail. Number one, data collection. The analysts bring upon data from various sources like the IMF, the World Bank, central banks of that country, ministries of the country, and PSUs of that particular country. After that, the analysts take up all of this data and begin analyze it in a proper manner, following a SOP which the credit rating company has already set upon. There are two major ways in which it is analyzed. One is a quantitative and one is qualitative. Number one, quantitative. These are basically factors which you can put upon paper and say that this number doesn't add up and hence we should give him a lower rating. Oh wait, this number does add up and let's give him a higher rating. For example, what is the per capita income? What is the GDP growth? How well the GDP is growing? What is the external debt? How well the economic development is going on? After that, you have qualitative factors, which are not put upon paper, however, are equally important to understand the credit rating of a country. Like the ESG integration, that is environmental, social, and governmental integration. Political stability is the country like Pakistan, where at any time military rule takes over and the political scenario of the country dissolves. Third, structural reforms. Just like India had structural reforms of 5-year plans after the independence, how well the country is forming its reforms and what are the plans it has to in the future. Institutional effectiveness, how well the institutions and the ministries of that particular country is functioning, like our railways, SAIL, and other governmental companies that we have. And lastly, the financial sector stability, how well the banks are doing, how well RBI is doing, how well SBI is doing, how well the middle class is doing, what is the poverty in our country, how well is the upper class doing. All of these factors add up to ultimately give a country its credit rating. Well, after all of this analysis has been done by their analysts, a credit rating committee is deliberated, which is headed by a chief credit officer who then looks into these findings and says that, okay, I really like this country and let's go ahead and give it a good rating. Oh, or the metrics are bad, so let's give it a bad rating. After that, this rating is then communicated to the country saying that, hey, this is the rating we are going to publish. Are you okay with it? The country then goes through the entire research paper and says that, hey, this is wrong, these are the facts that you have gone wrong, and debates go upon between the credit rating agency and the country, and finally a conclusion is reached upon. After that, publication of that credit rating is done. That is, it is then published into journals, the internet, newspapers, Bloomberg, all of the TV channels, etc. Well, once the credit rating has been reached upon, what are its implications? That is, let's say that the credit rating of that country has fallen. What really happens? Number one, FDI deterrence. Global investors no longer wish to invest in this particular country. Number two, currency depreciation. As investors begin to sell off their assets in that country, the supply of the home currency increases, ultimately leading to currency depreciation. Number three, capital flight risk. Capital is moved from one country to another in order to save their money. And lastly, a higher risk premium. As you have a higher chance of defaulting, I will now want a higher interest rate from you just in order to equal the risk of your default. Eroding investor confidence. Investor confidence is eroded in three simple steps. Number one, FDI is reduced. Number two, the demand for the bonds of that country goes down. And lastly, as the increase of default risk increases, global investors begin to rethink their positions. Let's say that India, one fine day, wants to build the Atal Setu bridge. What does it require for it? Funds, of course, funds. Let's say that India decides to build the Atal Setu at around rupees 20,000 crores. For that, it issues bonds, or around 10,000 bonds of rupees 2 crore each, and decides to give the investor an interest rate of about 3%. That means every investor who is holding a bond makes around 6 lakh rupees per annum at around 3%. One fine day, the credit rating of India falls. Now the investor is scared, will I ever get back my money? And eventually he sells it off. He sells off his bond to another investor at rupees 1 crore. What does that mean? The investor is still making 6 lakhs upon that bond. So the bond yield of that particular bond rises to 6%. How does it affect India? India can no longer issue bonds at 6%. Do you understand how grave this is? The global investors now begin to buy upon these bonds and are making more interest rate, and India can no longer issue bonds at an interest rate of lower than 6%. So they have to pay a higher interest rate for the same amount of capital. Lastly, let me take you through India's case study, which I've gone through. Recently, India published a research paper upon how they have been heavily discriminated upon when it comes to these credit ratings. Well, the credit ratings are given by institutions set up in the West. Do you think they are biased towards their own towards the West and they want to bring down upon Asian countries? Well, I think the same. As you can see, India has been rated B by all of the three rating agencies. That means a stable outlook and not investment grade. Do you think India is not investable? What do you think, guys? Do you think India is not investable? It is investable. Absolutely, it is investable. Well, there are certain strengths which India have, like they have a robust economic fundamentals, like a strong foreign exchange reserve, a moderate external debt of around 18 to 20%, and lastly, a great demographic dividend, that is you and I, the youth of this nation that will take it to soaring heights. Well, this is a comparison of how exactly India has been discriminated upon. Well, in the table you can see that Spain and Italy both have a higher debt to GDP ratio as compared to India. However, India has been rated lower than both of these countries. How do you think this is justified? And in my opinion, this is a clear bias towards the Western countries. The Western countries wish to reduce their credit rating of India and bring upon more interest upon their loans they give off to India. This is an extract from the research paper which was published by the Ministry of Finance of India. The black line you see basically is a correlation between the average metric, that is on every single metric they give a point to you. So the red dot you see is India, and the black line you see is basically the average that was given off to countries. As you can see, India has been given a lower rating in every single metric, when the average was much higher than that. Next, you might ask, why doesn't India argue upon these points? Why don't they say that you guys are wrong and we are right? Well, the answer is right ahead of you. When it comes to quantitative factors, India can argue and say that, hey, your numbers are wrong and we will correct it. But when they say that, they play the game of perceptions, saying that, hey, this is a qualitative aspect and we perceive that you guys are bad at this. And then the debate ends right there. You really can't do anything about it. Well, that was it from my side. I'll take you quickly through the recap of what all I went through. Number one, what are sovereign credit ratings? Number two, overview of the three major entities that exist, that is Moody's, S&P, and Fitch Ratings. Number three, the credit rating process, that is data collection, analyst review, the deliberation of the credit rating committee, and finally the publication of the credit rating. Implications and methodologies, that is what really happens when a credit rating falls. And lastly, the case study on how India has been heavily discriminated upon by these Western institutions. Thank you all for being a patient audience, and that was your boy Arya Kedkar signing off.
थैंक यू आर्या फॉर दैट इंसाइटफुल प्रेजेंटेशन. वैसे राघव, मुझे तो इतना सब पता भी नहीं था कि ये चीज़ भी होती है.